Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Post in Black, where we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. This episode is brought to you by the Dolby Institute and Avid, our sponsors for this season of Post in Black. We are excited to have with us today Sean Linal, editor. Thank you for joining us, Sean.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, it's really exciting. Kicking off our 5th season. Another episode. Happy to have you. And you know, we always have an icebreaker. Are you ready for that?
Let's do it.
We got to jump right in. If you could remove one thing from your daily routine, what would it be and why?
My daily routine?
Yeah. I know editors, you organize and have things, but if, you wake up, you have a little motivation, a little yoga or something, or you do something, you're like, if I could remove this from my schedule, it would free up more time, what would you do?
Remove something, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I would say...
the
union may not agree with this, but a lunch break.
Okay.
It's different. It's different when you're editing because when the juices start flowing, you don't want anything to stop you or interrupt you. You're deep into a scene. And you're the characters are leading you. It's kind of like I'm a host, and so I just don't want any interruptions. So
Okay, so you're all about the work.
Yes.
You're like, let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, I'm not part of the union, but I know for sure they're going to say...
I start early, too. Yeah. I start sometimes 6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So I know sometimes it's hard for me to find an assist that's cool with starting that early.
Yeah.
But, that's where most of my energy is at its height. So
I'm with it.
To roll with it.
I'm with it.
Yeah. I often have to remind myself to eat. So I have like a small box of peanuts or nuts. Mixed nuts, with some water, at my desk. So I could, because sometimes I'll just forget. And then out of nowhere, maybe about 4 hours later, I'm like, why do I have a headache? Oh, I haven't eaten anything.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. The mixed fruit, the nut, but that's a healthy snack to have with you. But that kind of leads us to going in and finding out a little bit more about you. As you talk about, you get to the work. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from? How you grew up? What led to this machine that we're talking to right now that you put in that effort? Yeah.
Wow. It started in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only child, so I went inward a lot. So I did a lot of drawing and writing and was a big fan of filmmaking, the generation that grew up with the television.
Yeah.
So I watched a lot of television in and out. I even was sometimes pretend like my school was on television.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, late high school, NAACP ACT-SO has a program for high school students. And I originally entered the writing part, but it was closed. So I entered the filmmaking part and I made a short film on homelessness in the subway. And I'm 16 years old. I went down to the Transit Museum and I said, hey, I got this idea. And they were so kind because they normally charge thousands of dollars, and they let me shoot on a real train in the Transit Museum for the NAACP competition.
Wow.
And it was incredible. I won a silver medal. Yeah. I won a few $100s to help me towards film school. I got into Pratt, SVA, and Columbia, but I chose SVA because at the time, I was also a part of a community center called Reland Center for Children and Families that was run by, I don't think he's retired now, but run by Jeffrey Canada. He started it.
Yeah.
And there was a video component. And this was also my first intro into, I would say, network notes, because we had a public access show. So there's a bunch of kids writing and shooting public access show, and we had to meet certain deadlines. So that was my first taste of, we got to get things done. This is way back. This is in the 90s.
This is high school too?
Yeah, it's high school. So this is reel to reel, VHS to VHS editing, and then we had to get the stuff out on time. And so that with the NAACP, and so my energy was like, okay, this is happening. I want to keep this momentum going. And the School of Visual Arts was the first college that I applied to that you could have your hands on the camera the first year.
Okay.
So Pratt, NYU, those other schools, you had to wait till your third year. You had to do your liberal arts stuff first. So I'm like, I'm already in the momentum, the NAACP, rise and shine. I want to keep my hands on the camera. I don't want to stop. And so I got into SVA. I even got like a partial scholarship for a few years.
Oh, wow.
And then and that film I did for the NAACP got me in the door, because you needed, if you want to get into the film program in SVA at the time, you have to at least shoot one short film of your own as a high school student.
You already had yours.
Yeah, I already had mine. I was
man. That is an incredible start and just like really powerful. And I think something that you said about going to them asking, can the film? If you don't ask, you don't know.
Right.
And you put yourself out there and you were rewarded. And that just kind of sparked, a domino effect, if you will. Okay. So would you say early on that you were excited about working in TV and film?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Was that, okay. Even while I was in film school, my first internship was at Women Make Movies.
Wow.
And a paid internship. And then I was an intern on VH1, Rock and Roll Record Breakers, and the Chris Rock Show on HBO.
Man,
while I was in school, so I was trying to get ready for building a resume.
What was there like? How did you find out about these opportunities? Was it something that the school was showing you, or was it something that you had to research and find on your own? Because that's something that is a skill set I think we want to encourage people who are watching
being proactive.
Being proactive. You're not just going to sit on your hands and get it.
It is all about that. So Women Make Movies. Well, so in my school career office, there's like this giant book. This is before the internet. I'm showing my age here.
The yellow pages.
I would it was like hundreds of pages, and I would just flip through it. In terms of like the MTV stuff and the Chris Rock. So in New York City, there's a mayor list.
Oh, wow.
That comes out every week, and it lists all film and TV productions shooting in New York City. Wow. So I would go down to the mayor's office every week, get that list, and send my resume.
Come on.
And so, yeah.
Come on. That's incredible. That's fine. And that's taking it back. And that is proactive, and something yet, if you don't know already, if you're watching this, you have to be proactive in this industry. It's not just going to happen. The actor, your management and representation, they work with you, but you are working for yourself in a way. It doesn't stop. So that set the book. So you're doing all of this in New York. What were there mentors? Were there people in these school situations that you were able to attach yourself to? And obviously you're working there. And we'll talk about the timeline of coming to Los Angeles. But what were your mentors like, your teachers like, that kind of helped you along the way when you ran into some obstacles?
Oh, wow. High school, Project Smart. I don't know if that still exists.
Okay.
It was like an after-school program.
Yeah.
We were like peer counselors. We started off, and then there were other things we were doing, just like helping other students with homework.
Yeah.
And because I was going to the city and I got involved with Rise and Shine, it kind of made me famous at my high school. So a lot of the students were just volunteering their time to help me like play characters in the films I was working on. So wow, how this kind of got its first start is I think around my 11th year.
Yeah.
My 11th grade, sorry. The guidance counselor said, okay, what are you going to do with your life? What do you want to do? And so I'm like, wow, I don't have any extracurricular activities. So I started thinking about how creative I am. And then it kind of just sparked there. There was I think it still happens. There's a magazine called New Youth Connections. It goes to every high school in New York City. And I reached out to them and said, hey, well, I write all the time. Can I write an article? And then they said, yeah, sure. So I sort of got my feet wet in journalism for a little bit. And I think once I got involved with that community organization, sort of opened the floodgates. So that community organization was in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. The school was so supportive. They gave me a free train pass to go to the city. I had a free train pass. I'm a kid here jumping on and off the subway for free.
Everywhere.
And I would write for this newspaper. And then I remember during that summertime, the first year I was writing for the newspaper, there's this organization called Youth Force, part of Citizens Committee for New York City. It was right across the streets on West 27th, across from the Fashion Institute.
Yeah.
And they had a video component. They were doing a lot of great things. Like they were helping like kids that were going to Spofford, kids that were teen pregnancy, like all these issues that face kids in New York City. They had some kind of involvement with it. And they had a video component that was shooting documentaries. And so I went over there from across the street and said, hey, I saw this flyer. Then I got involved, and I got like a little stipend, like $100 every 2 weeks. But I was, I didn't care. Far Rockaway is like an hour and a half one way. But I was doing something I loved and getting a little stipend and then connecting. And then I was surprised how many community organizations were connected, like City Kids, Youth Force, Rise and Shine. Yeah. All these places were connected. So that's how I found out about each one. And I got involved with each one. And then when I ended up going to film school, I kind of reached back out to City Kids to get some of their actors in the short films I was working on, and Faces. That's another organization, Susan Montez. So Susan Montez, Faces, she has a theater group. Zoe Saldana's from that theater group. Rise and Shine, Laura Varel is one of my mentors. Kim McGillicuddy from Youth Force. So all of these, and then especially when I got involved with Rise and Shine as part of the Jeffrey Canna umbrella with the Harlem Children's Zone, when I got deeper into college, I started working for AmeriCorps. So I was getting paid to go out and shoot videos, and I was getting money for college through AmeriCorps. Man. And then I was around Harlem a lot. So I got to know a lot of the prominent Black leaders in the community. So these people that have been raised from a different point of view, they come from that, Harlem Renaissance class.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Very positive, very encouraging. So that, that also, like, they just light the fuse, and then I just went with it,
I mean, you've laid the foundation of your start and just the initiative, inquisitive, like all these things. And now, we're going to jump a little bit because we're in Los Angeles.
Right.
And we can go through and name all the different credits and projects that you work on, but there's a couple in particular that stand out that we talk about. We talk about The Shy, talk about Queen Sugar.
Yes.
Would you say, and you can say yes or no, would you say that your beginning, your foundation is what has led you to having the career that you've had as an editor? And did you even foresee this being your career when you started back then?
No, actually, I didn't. As I started out, I wanted to, just be a filmmaker.
Right.
But I realized that, I cut all my short films. I cut other friends' short films. I love being in a dark room. And that's back when we were cutting on the Steinbeck 16 millimeter reel to reel. And then with the community centers, it was VHS 3/4 reel to reel.
Yeah.
So I just love just editing. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this could be a great career path for me. And I just decided to stick with editing.
What about editing sticks out? Because you say you like being in a dark room, but what about editing? We've talked to a lot of different people, and I'm not even going to say what they've said, but we've heard a lot of different answers. But what about editing for you was like, man, this is it? Because, for me, acting, when I saw, I went to the theater and I saw how it made me feel. I was like, I want to be a part of a story, and I want to make people feel how I felt when I left the theater. I was like, I want to be part of a story that just outlives me. People can watch movies over and over and over, regardless of the actors being there. For you, what was it about editing that said, man, I got to do this?
Well, you have your hands in all the material.
Oh, yeah.
All the material is in your hands, and you're help shaping the story. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, fast forward film school to the professional world, you're collaborating, shaping the story.
Yeah.
So you're a part of everything, and I think that's what I love. To me, that's the pure filmmaking right there.
Yeah.
Versus, if you're writing or you're shooting, it's the script is a blueprint. If you're, those are just pieces. Like if you're acting or you're directing. But, when you actually have all of the footage and you're working with the performances, you're working with the cinematography, you're working with the music, you have all of the elements, and you're help shaping the feel and the vibe of the episode in television specifically, when you're talking about episodes, and, also with the film. And then, the directors, the showrunners, the producers and the writers, and you're all working together at a certain point, once you pass your editor's cut, for this vision, that goes out into the world for ridicule. It's like, I like to say that, we're prepping a child for college. And then the college part is when things go to online. And then now, once everything is online, now it's out in the world for scrutiny. Did you do a good job as a parent?
Man, you're talking about something, and I want to jump back, but I'm going to stay right there for a second, because talk about that as an editor. It's like you're crafting the baby, you have all of this, and you put it out there for ridicule. How we talk about the directors and the producers and studios and even the actors facing the criticism. How do you deal with that when something maybe is well received and it's loved, or if it's like not getting the love that you may feel deserved? Like, is it that Homer Simpson meme where you kind of creeping back in the bushes? Or, you stand 10 toes down?
I've been very blessed. I'm very thankful that I've worked on very successful shows.
Exactly.
And so everyone is just really excited that the show is back.
Right.
And I am very proud of one of the episodes of The Shy Cut, episode 606, Boys to Men, last season. Is their highest rated episode, 8.8 out of 10 on IMDb.
Talk about it.
So I'm very proud.
Episode, what was that again? Episode
8.8 out of 10 IMDb, Boys to Men, season 6, episode 6.
That's fire. That's something to hang there.
The highest rated episode of the series. I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
When you first got the call to work on The Shy and to work on Queen Sugar, what was that feeling like? And what did you feel that you had to bring to the table when you stepped into the room? Do you feel like a pressure to like, oh, now I got to perform for this because it's a network, it's this, it's, Ava DuVernay, Lena, Waithe. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, like I mentioned earlier about like in high school, getting that sort of start things have to be done by a certain time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if we don't get this, this episode of our public access show out by a certain time, it won't make the air for Manhattan Neighborhood Network. So I already had that kind of adrenaline built in from high school. In terms of like Queen Sugar and even The Shy, like I came up in Queen Sugar as an assistant editor.
There you go.
So I was already in the mix. I already knew the whole, not just the feel or the vibe of the show, but I knew the characters very well. Yeah. I knew what the stakes were. I worked on Queen Sugar as an assistant seasons 2, 3, and 4. So earlier on in the season. So once I became an editor, like I had, had
you had a grasp of everything, the whole story.
Also, I knew where things were. I knew in terms of like our library. Yeah. So I would say there obviously was a level of pressure to like prove myself to Ava. So whenever I feel that nervousness, I just focus on the work.
Okay.
And then once I focus on the work, then slowly my anxiety just fades away. Yeah. And then I have a cut to put out. And then the anxiety comes back. I remember there was one time, I think we were wrapping up season 6, and Ava was texting me back her responses.
Yeah.
And then I got like, I was waiting, and then like 5 minutes later there was a heart. And then there was an exclamation point. I'm like, whoo.
that dead period was like, wait.
Yes,
are we fans of this? Or what's happening? That's surreal.
I think that was probably like the most intense that I felt.
Man, text messages can be so misconstrued sometimes. Right. You're like, wait, what? Oh, I had to run to the restroom. Right. You're like, this last 6 minutes, I was dying in here. Yeah.
Right, but I want to piggyback on, you're talking about being proactive. Proactive is the key. So it wasn't like Ava just like was watching me and then gave me an opportunity. I made it known that I really enjoyed being there. Like she had a compound, and that was a real big blessing for me because the writers of Queen Sugar, the directors of Queen Sugar were there on the compound when they wrapped, their parts of shooting. I got to actually have lunch with them and sit with them. And so I'm building a network. And then Ava, her office is in the compound. So she would come by often. So I get to like briefly talk to her. Yeah. And then as things were happening, as the years were going by, I got to, tell Ava my progress. Yeah. And then a shout out to Avro Bukes. She would let Ava know whatever I helped out, in the cut. And so I just kept doing that. And then social media is awesome. So whenever we're at the mix, I would never show anything that hasn't aired yet. Right. But I would say, hey, we wrapped this. I'm excited for the next season, so
gets fans excited about it.
Gets fans excited, hashtag, and then Ava's following me on Instagram. So I'm staying in her mind, I'm staying in the showrunner's mind, and I'm showing them that, and I really do love being here. Right. So whenever I had an opportunity to show Ava anything that I cut, eventually I got the call. Yeah. Season 6 to actually, let's see what you can do. Get the chair. Sure. And with The Shy, I was an assistant first. Okay. And I let my post producer know. I let him know, Chris McGinn. I said, hey, you know, I want to cut.
Yeah.
I was lucky. My editor let me cut stuff. Victoria Grimsley, and so like I was already establishing a relationship. So after season 6 of Queen Sugar, I went back to the Shy and said, hey, and it just so happens that they had a slot available, and that's how that kind of happened. Yeah, it was just the timing.
You mentioned something too, and I think those both are really important lessons for everybody. I think just like following up, being genuine. And then when you are, it's not even about like, sometimes people do things because they want something. But you were just genuinely like saying, hey, I'm enjoying being here. That doesn't take much. And then that opportunity presented itself as like, oh, well, I want to work with people that do want to be here. Because sometimes if you don't say anything, I don't know.
Right.
You know, but can you talk about the transition from assistant to editor? What are some of the things you were doing as an assistant that you were able to pick up on from the editors at the time? Because I'm sure there were some things that you were able to watch while you were in the wings before you get out there. And maybe that's encouragement to somebody else who's assisting right now that eventually wants to edit, be in the chair.
Absolutely. Actually, I started hosting a series called Helping Assistant Editors Get in the Chair with the Editors Guild. And I'm doing it as part of the membership outreach committee. And I kind of want to keep it going and rotate editors and hopefully assistants maybe every 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Because I want to share what I've experienced, because I've had a really long road. So I don't want people to get discouraged. I want them to see that, just keep this going.
Yeah.
But okay, so I started out in reality.
Yeah.
And when I was in reality, I worked, I was one of those assistants that were night, and then they worked their way up to lead.
I know about
and
that.
then the show runs out of shows. I mean, the company runs out of shows.
Yeah.
They're at another company. I did that 3 times. I got kicked off the roster 2 times trying to find a union job. And so once I got to the lead positions in these 3 different companies, as the lead assistant editor, a lot's on you. Like not just you having to delegate the work to the other assistants that are below you. You also have to deal with the vendors. You have to deal with the producers directly.
Right.
And they expect you to problem solve anything that, you have to see it, handle it even before the editors come in. So when I cross over to scripted television, they don't tell you need these skills, but you really do need these skills if you're an assistant.
Yeah.
And so I already had those skills coming in. And then I would say the difference with scripted television, I went to film school.
Yeah.
So working with dailies, understanding script supervisor, what I'm finally using that education because I didn't use it in reality.
Yeah.
I'm finally using that education. So I knew all of that. And then on top of that, just being at the mix. And if I can be in some of the sessions when my editor is working with the showrunner or the director, then I'm seeing how they work the room and how they handle notes and how they adjust. I remember I was on Teen Wolf, I was very shy. Our showrunner, Jeff Davis, was working with my editor, Eric Anderson, and I knocked on his door to give him some stuff, and they were like, come in. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, come in, Sean, sit down. What do you think of this scene? I'm like, what? This is the creator of Teen Wolf right here.
Yeah.
I'm just, oh, wow, so.
And they want you.
Right, and they wanted my
valued
input.
your opinion.
And they valued my opinion. So that made me feel more comfortable to, okay, well, now I know what to do. And then so once I learned all this stuff, then I know what's expected of me. And then, like I was saying, like being on top of things, like let's say, for example, there's a problem at the Daily's house, or you're not getting the footage, or there's a sync problem, like being on top of that before your editors start, and then also being sort of like a negotiator, like when it's time to get things out to the vendors. Like if you're good at working out your schedule and speaking with the editor, speaking with the post soup, and if you're good at that stuff, those post soups, those post producers will see your leadership
and they see
qualities. And they're like, well, when, now if you match up the creativity, if you show that you got the chops creatively, and then you show you got the leadership skills, then you are, you're for the chair. You're like, you're ready for the chair.
You're touching on so many good things and that are so important. I think, you don't realize until you're on the other end.
Yeah, you don't realize it.
Like your road has prepared you for the information, but
yes,
entertainment, communication, organization, time management.
Yes.
Some of the most important things. I had a meeting with my manager before she signed me, and hey, Cheryl, and she asked me, she said, what's something about you that I wouldn't know just by looking at you? I said, I know who I am. I haven't always walked in it, but I'm walking in it strongly now.
Nice.
Very confident, very aware of who I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going. And I don't know everything, but I do know who I am. And I know, and some of the things I say is like, I used to move around LA a lot when I first moved here, but I wasn't making a lot of moves. You know what I mean? I was at all the venues, would talk to people, but didn't know what questions to ask. Sometimes I didn't even know who to talk to. Now it's a little bit clearer. And so you're saying all of that, and that's really important. I want to jump back into, you talk about the assistant editing and switching to editor. Is there some challenge, that you had to navigate in the chair that was really eye-opening, that you would encourage somebody else, like a word of advice once you got in there? You talk about the pressures, because obviously working with Ava was great, working with Lena is great, but is there some additional pressure? Maybe you weren't as always supported. Was there something that you felt like that, and maybe a challenge that you had to face that you say, that's difficult? Let me encourage somebody there, a word of advice for navigating those conversations about the politics of editing, if you makes that makes sense, like actually fighting for a cut. You know what I mean? Right. Those things.
Right. Let's see. I think when I was getting started, the hardest thing for me was finding an assistant editor that was as solid. At the time when I got bumped up, there was a lot of shows happening. Yeah. And so most of the assistant editors that I knew, and what I mean by solid, I mean like leadership.
I was going to ask what makes a solid
like
assistant.
Leadership. Like I don't have to give you a call and say, hey, I'm missing the shot. Hey, this is out of sync. Hey, did you reach out to the music supervisor? We need this. Hey, did you start pulling stuff for a gag reel? Hey, did you set up the projects for the next upcoming episodes?
Initiative.
Initiative. Hey, did you start going? We got a recap that needs cutting. Did you start going through the episodes and, did you go through the script and see what stuff is happening that's coming up that's relevant to our episode? Like just that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I find myself having to, I would say I've met assistant editors that may have had like maybe one scripted show, and I've sort of had to simultaneously be a mentor and pull myself up at the same time.
I got you.
I mean, so that was, I would say, challenging. Also, in terms of like, you talking about like the politics of the room. Yeah. I think for me, I know it's a collaborative process. Okay. It's not, it's not the Sean show, it's not even the it's not even the director show, it's all of us working together. It's definitely the director's vision.
Got you.
For that episode. Yeah. And so for me, it's more about, like I may present one version of a particular scene. Yeah. And then they might have another vision that they may want to work or change, or they maybe just want to change things around just to see of how it might feel differently than what I did. So
that's real.
And just to be straight, I would say that I've had many moments where like half of my sequence, they're rolling with it. And then the other half, they're making changes. And then I've been back and forth with all of that. But it's all to make the show better. Yeah. And there's always things that you didn't think, like even if it's spelled out in the script, that you didn't consider. Like when, sometimes when things get to the showrunner and they were like, well, we want to end this here, chop this off here, or, start this a little earlier, or we don't need this part. Because as a filmmaker, at first I'm thinking about like filmmaking 101. First establish where we are, right? And then, you bring the people in, and then you get closer. And then when there are certain things that are really important to move the scene along, then I want to get even closer, depending on what things are. And it's a necessary, to cut to a cutaway of something that you needed, unless it's important for the storyline down the road. Now, that's where things helped me out with Queen Sugar and The Chi, because I've watched all the episodes and I've worked on multiple seasons. So I know that, okay, this point in the story, this character's story arc is hitting here. So I've done the homework. I've prepared for this moment.
Yeah.
So all those things kind of sort of all come together.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, when it gets to the part where the showrunner's doing notes, they may not want even the traditional film stuff. They just want to get started here or get started there. But you could always tell, even, let's say even if you get dailies and necessarily you might not have all of the clear notes. I mean, most of the time the directors tell you what they want to start with or what they're favoring. But you can tell when you watch all the footage when, where it's starting from, how the camera's moving in or pulling out.
You have an eye for it.
You have an eye for it, right?
Yeah.
And then, as you're the editor, you're putting the episode together.
Yeah.
The previous episode, the next episode, you're figuring out how to bridge it with the music, or maybe if it's a really intense scene, you may want to have some stock footage to kind of and then have some music to kind of slow it down, or So all those things come into play when you're working with it.
There's a level of excitement and things that I hear what you're talking about it. And there's two things I want to touch on really quickly, if you could mention them. Working during the pandemic, COVID, home, in person, something that you miss out on, that energy, that feel, how different was that? And then obviously we just dealt with, the strike in the industry, navigating the waters. Can you just touch on those two quickly for us?
Yeah, wow.
If you can quickly. I mean,
absolutely.
Those are kind of beats two pandemics, if you will.
Really, yes. Yeah. Yes, for me, absolutely.
For sure.
Full transparency, right before the pandemic, I had my credit cards under 30%.
Yeah.
I saved up thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And then coming from reality, as a freelancer, it's like I'm back and forth. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I finally got to a place where I got things handled. And then the pandemic happens, and then my finances get knocked down. And then Hollywood revs back up, and then I'm starting to handle things and build things up. And then the strike happens, and then it's I had a tough road. It's a really, really tough road.
No.
But working from home, traffic increasingly gets worse and worse in LA.
Yeah.
So I was really happy that I don't, if I have to drive an hour and a half, and then I have to get to the office, turn off the alarm, set up my stuff for my editor, and then print out stuff. And before I even start working, and then depending on where I'm working at, if I have to park on the street, look for parking. So you're talking about all this extra time before I even start work versus I can literally wake up, take a shower, head into the next room, get started.
And get going.
I think for people who miss the office camaraderie, well, you just have to be more proactive outside of the office. You could always say, once you get in with the crew and you start working with them, maybe in a couple of weeks, say, hey, if you have some time, let's meet up for coffee.
Yeah.
You have to be more proactive because you don't have that office there with everyone. So for me personally, especially being a married man, I love having more time with my wife.
Yes, sir.
And I love, there are times where my brain is just exhausted. I love that I could just go to the next room, take a shower, go to bed. I don't have to worry about, have a Red Bull and stay up so I don't die driving home. So work from home works great for me. I mean, I'm cool with if, there's certain times I need to come into the office for certain things. That's fine with me, but I actually prefer, working from home. And me personally, because I'm very proactive, I will do what I need to do to build those relationships with people.
We've seen you active on social media and just being out there on the go, everything with the Editors Guild and just, putting yourself out there, making connections, relationships is really important. A word of advice for people just, in moving forward in the industry, for someone that wants to break in or somebody that's trying to stay in, what would you say to them about where it's at? Because you were very transparent, and we appreciate that because it is a real thing. Being an actor, man, during COVID, the only reason I was able to pay my rent is because I did a voiceover for a COVID commercial, and they ran it 12 times. So they sent it to me. That was the only reason. So God is good. I was very thankful.
But bless you, brother. During the strikes, that was a rough time. I have or had thousands of records, collector's items, record store day, like certain things. I liquidated that entire collection. Wow. Thousands of dollars to help me pay months and months of rent to get through the strikes. And that helped me get through the strikes. And it was heartbreaking, still heartbreaking, but I did what I had to do because this is my 20th year. I've come too far.
Yes, sir.
I had to do what I had to do. So that was really hard. So in terms of me being active with our local and a lot of different committees and organizations, even within ACE, I felt that I don't want to be home crying, feeling depressed that there's no work. I think this is a great time to get involved in community and do positive things and sort of keep building within the community anything that I could do or share or just and have that support system. Because when everyone is going through it, then you actually have people that it's not just you. But when you're by yourself in the house, it just feels like it's you. But if you're out there with people who are in the same boat, it doesn't feel like it's just you. And so I started to think that, okay, I'm also getting older. I don't have any children. This is a good opportunity to get back and to get started on the ground floor. So when hopefully the shows start ramping back up, I've already established my involvement in various communities.
Right.
And so just to be easy, just show up to meetings and do the work you need to do for whatever you need to do for that, organization.
You're a powerful brother. I mean, where can people keep in touch with you and just know what's coming next? Because I know we've talked offline, but where can people keep in touch with you and just follow along with you so that they know, like, hey, Sean, maybe drop you a line and reach out?
I would say Instagram. I always repost and I let people know what's going on ahead of time. And I'm going to reiterate that because I remember when the panel came out for helping assistant editors get in the chair, I let everyone on Instagram know in my stories weeks ahead that it was going to be live. And then when it went live, everyone started emailing me and messaging me, hey, say, I can't get in. I'm like, I let you all know.
Weeks.
Yes. And so then I guess they kind of strong arm me to add a Zoom component to it. But I think that's the best place. I'm always active there. And it's just easier to share information. So Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes X, Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Look, Sean, we obviously we talk to you. We can talk to you more and more. But just you, where you're from, the upbringing in New York. The background, being a black man, we love to see it, and just everything that you've done. And then you've touched on a couple of shows. You worked on a lot, but the two shows, they impacted the culture in a big way.
I know.
I've never been to Chicago, but watching the shot made me want to get out there. And Queen Sugar obviously does what it does.
Those are incredible shows.
And to be able to have that on your resume, I mean, just congrats to you and kudos to you. And hopefully you get to touch, some more groundbreaking shows that just touch the community too.
Well, so, Queen Sugar is close to my heart, and what Ava has created is just amazing. Like, I've never seen a show before that dealt with the Black family in such a way that was just positive, showing the good and the bad, and showing people trying to push forward and the progress of that. With The Chi, like seeing over the seasons how characters have developed, watching the kids grow up and graduate and decide, and then it being relevant to, I guess, what's happening in the world, and just bringing that into the Black community is just amazing. And I know I haven't spoken about it, but when I was in reality, I was like a night editor, string out editor for The Hills, the city. I did that for about two years, and my producer was trying to get me more night editing work, but it wasn't like enough. It was just like a week here, a week there, and then at that time, like rent prices were going up, so I kind of went back to assisting, and I didn't continue with editing. What would help me when I crossed over to scripted with Ava, like she gave me 3 episodes out the gate. Boom. So I'm like, so I had months and months of work. So I'm like, okay, well, I could do this now. I can't, versus just like having a little bit of time. So that really changed everything for me.
That's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's powerful, and I'm encouraged. Even I hope other people that are watching this are encouraged too. So we're gonna let you go, but we're gonna have to bring you back and just do this again, even if it's an IG live. You're on IG. We're gonna have to get you there, but really appreciate you being here for this episode. Yes, sir. Posting Black, and thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of Posting Black, brought to you by Dolby and Avid as our sponsors. Please subscribe. Follow the link on the bottom right there. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And we'll see you next time. Stay black.